Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the December 18th, 2025 regular meeting of the Brookline School Committee. My apologies for not being there in person. We have a lot of sickness in my house at the moment. But before we get to business, I wanted to start us off with a moment of silence. Since we last met, there have been mass shootings and murders in Australia, at Brown University, and most recently right here in Brookline, Brookline PSB dad. So as we approach Sunday, the solstice and the darkest day of the year, the shortest day of the year, and then we move toward more light. I hope that we bring more light into the world. So if we could just have a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm going to be turning the regular chairing over to Sarah for this meeting.
We're going to start tonight with the consent agenda, and I think we're going to take the three of them together. So would somebody like to move it?
I'll move it.
Suzanne moves, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Is there any discussion?
I did have a question. Is my mic working? Yeah. Although it was about the warrant, which now was online, and I didn't bring my computer. Any chance you?
Betsy can either pull it up or print it out.
And I apologize. Normally I bring my computer, and then that has started to seem silly.
Possible to defer this one then?
It was, if I can see it, and apologies, I thought it would be in the packet because it has been, which is not a criticism. There was an item that I just had a question about. I mean, we can defer it if, I don't mean to sort of make it difficult, but I did.
Yeah, why don't we go on to the student report? Does that make sense? And then we'll come back to it. Would we like to vote the rest of the consent agenda, or is it okay to move everything?
Let's do it all together, let's come back to it.
Okay, then let's go to the student report.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So first off, yesterday, December 17th, quarter two IPRs came out. So these are interim progress reports, and they're just a chance for teachers to check in with students and families and talk about how the quarter's been going so far. So there's usually comments, but no grades attached unless a student is failing the class at the time. And next off, winter sports are now underway. I believe lots of sports had tryouts post Thanksgiving, and now seasons have started and people are playing. And another thing that happened recently is that a couple colleges have started sending out early decisions, and this can be a really exciting but also like anxiety-inducing time for seniors. And I personally have a few friends who've got in, and I'm very proud of them. It's definitely exciting, even though it can be a difficult time. Another thing that happened recently is administration has decided that days of are going to transition into a new format called community learning experiences. So the main way this is different is that previous groups that have had days of are not necessarily the same ones that are going to have community learning experiences, but it's an application format. So there is a committee involved with student government, that reviews applications by different groups to have a day dedicated to learning about a particular societal issue or topic. And there are two student representatives who are part of this committee, but there have simultaneously been concerns about how much say students are actually getting in this process. So I think as the year progresses, we're going to see some of the first CLEs happening, and we're going to see how that plays out. And finally, on a more somber note, with all the violence that's been going on in this past news cycle, it's deeply affected many communities associated with Brookline and also groups in the high school. But luckily, there's been lots of counseling services that have been offered in multiple ways. So there have been emails sent out to students and families, as well as announcements made during advisory to tell students that counseling services are available and these resources are accessible, and they've been explaining who you should talk to, where you should go if you have any worries or concerns. That's all I have.
Thank you. It was great to hear from you. So Betsy, with you, yep,
Comment on her.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the report. I'll say two things. One is just to echo on your last point, and I really thought this when we heard from Bella with her leadership on the issue this week, how lucky we are to have such a strong counseling department led by Matt Dubois. So just it's unfortunate to have to, but I do want to acknowledge that. And I also want to acknowledge the IPRs. I have my second child in the high school right now, and that's a really great system. So I guess that's a shout out to Anthony and his team. As a parent, I find it to be a really great system. It gives me a sense of where my kids are, and it gives me a chance to check in with them, correct where we might need to correct, and feel connected to the school. So it's really smart, it's really supportive. It probably takes quite a certain amount of work on the part of teachers, but it's a really great part of BHS and the way that they support students. So just wanted to expand on that a little, and thanks for mentioning it.
And so Betsy's going to pull it up, and we are talking about the 1C. Is that what we're discussing?
If you scroll, there was one, okay. Nope, that's not it. All right, well, unfortunately, I can't read it. Well, okay. I can't read. What is, thank you. Okay. So 16 says professional technical services. Okay, and then claims and settlements. So I guess maybe Mariah or someone can answer this.
This one was
So-
Jesse. I don't know if he's there, just in case it's a detailed question about it.
Okay.
Jesse's absent tonight.
Okay, well, I can try to answer. I just don't know. Go ahead.
So what is typically professional technical services?
Well, when I write that, and I think Jesse does the same, it could be someone who's coming to consult. It could, for example, it could be like, there's so many different things that could be, but it could be someone who's doing like transitional services for a student. It could be a sign language interpreter. It could be, it's probably not legal services because he didn't call it legal services, but it's any one of those kinds of like outside services that support the activities of the district.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
That was the first question, and there were two.
Yeah, and you know what, there were, but I'll just take these offline because it's not important enough to take time here at all. Totally. Thank you.
So to be really official. Suzanne, would you move the consent agenda again?
I move the consent agenda.
Carolyn?
I'll second it again.
Thank you. Bob, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes, and I just want to express an appreciation for the fact that people are able now to look at the warrant and are like reading it, and that was really the goal of moving it into the consent agenda, and I'm glad it's working. So, thank you.
Val? We'll go back to Val. Suzanne?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Val, are you with us? And she stepped away, I guess, and I vote yes. So we will continue on with the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I just have a brief comment about what Chair Val Raya spoke about earlier. I want to extend an appreciation for the outpouring of support for the family of Nuno Loureiro and our school community at large. Every day, I've observed so many gestures of kindness, and they're often small gestures, whether it's food or time. I have seen so many people reach out and do check-ins, whether it's colleague to child, child to teacher, teacher to family, family to child, child to child. And it's been a beautiful thing to witness at this time, the multitude of small gestures, the personal gestures, and how that represents our community and offering comfort across all groups. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for that. I do have one other announcement for the report, and Susan Gibbons, Deputy Superintendent of the Office of Administration and Finance, is going to share that announcement. So it's a really good and positive one.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's okay? I know I'm always told I'm soft. How's that? Better? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, our website provider was bought out. We used to have Blackboard, and it was bought out by Final Site, and we've had about a year and a half to convert our site over to the new platform. So effective tomorrow, we'll be moving to the new platform, which is rather exciting because there's some upgrades that will be part of the upgrade. A couple of things worth noting is that, one, we're going to change our domain name. Will not impact anybody because the old domain name, which was brookline.ma.us, et cetera, is now going to be psbma.org. But even if you went to the old website, it would still point you to the new one. So it will have absolutely no disruption, regardless of whether you use the new or the old. So, but it also then helps to streamline some of our backside processes that have been a little bit challenging. So we're kind of pleased about that. But also, it's going to be more streamlined with some updated features. Accessibility will be improved, which we're grateful for that because we've had some folks tell us that they've had some difficulty both with navigation and getting access to information. So I think people will be pleased to see the new site tomorrow. Other than that, there's really no other changes. The elementary schools will have a consistent looking homepage so that navigation between the schools will make it easier. The high school will maintain their current website, which is just merely linked to the current website. So there'll be no changes at the high school level. The district, again, will be streamlined, and we hope that you'll find it easier to navigate. Certainly, if there's any feedback, you can reach out and let us know. Other ways we can improve the website. But we're excited that we'll be able to launch tomorrow. But before I end my comments, I'd like to give a shout out and a thank you to a few people that were instrumental in making this happen. One is my assistant Z, Barry, but also Ali Lopez Kudra, who was the website person who has been amazing, who's come in a short period of time and been able to get hold of all of the content and help us to be able to make this transition. Scott Moore, our ed tech director, was instrumental. Joe Coyle, who is our help desk manager on the town side, and also all the principals and the secretaries and ETFs and everybody else that met with us along the way to be able to put their eyes on it, give us new pictures, updated pictures, and review the content. So special thank you to everybody for the efforts they've made in order to help us make this transition.
Of course, Susan didn't thank herself because she's the one that actually coordinated all these people and found all these people to help and see. Anyway, but thank you to you too, Susan, for making this happen.
And that's everything? Yeah. Okay, great. We will start with public comment. I'd like to just remind everybody that
Before
during public
you go
comment.
there, are we going to get
Yep.
her to ask questions?
Sorry, do you have questions for Bella?
Yeah, it's actually for Susan. I was just wondering how the public or other people, what would be the best way to receive feedback about the new site? That would be sort of like, is there a form or should they email a certain email address? Just thinking about how people could provide it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming or chaotic and goes to the right person.
I think the best way to do it is we can put a little button on the website for people to provide feedback, especially as we launch. If they're having difficulty navigating in any kind of a way, to give us that kind of feedback be helpful so that we can make adjustments. Ali, the person that's assisting us with the website and the backside changes, is going to be with us for the next 6 weeks to help us make any further adjustments. So I'll make sure tomorrow I'll reach out to her and have her put a button, a feedback button on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariah. We're going to start into public comment, and I'd like to just say again that we don't respond to public comment. We listen very deeply to what you have to say. And we are going to begin with Nicola Russian, who might be online. She wasn't sure whether she would be in person or online. We'll go back to her later. Okay. So Pegan Karimi.
Just hold right up. Okay. Like this, you can hear me? Yeah. My name is Pega. I have two kids, one kindergarten, the other one third grader at Driscoll School. And I'm here to raise the concern that we have for the third graders in Driscoll. My son is in a class that they are 24 in the class. And I'm sure by the end of the year, the number is going to increase and it's going to be even more, like 25 or more. And the other classes are also the same. There are two other classes. The issue is that I see that these classes are overcrowded. Everyone knew about Brookline because of the good education that they have. But now I see the frustrations of not my son, but his classmates as well, that for like just provide you as an example, he came home one day that we were all lined up to answer questions, to have our questions by our teachers, to be answered. We were in line, but after the second one, the teacher, or the third one, the teacher says that, sorry, we don't have time. We have to, do the other part, which is the next things in the curriculum. So they are all the time being rushed. The teachers are doing the great job they can. They are, of course, exhausted with, having so many kids at that age, like 8-year-olds, that they need all these special needs. And Driscoll is made, the new Driscoll, to be like 4-session classes. And I'm here to ask you that if you can allocate the budget for next year to have these, to have 4 classes for the 4th grader, even if you add, one more class, the average size will be still like 20. It's not gonna be, too low. But if you don't add it, the average is way more than what is expected, or what is even the average size of the Massachusetts elementary school. And this is the ask that, I'm here to represent even the other families and the other kids at the 3rd grade at Driscoll, that if we can have, one more class for next year. This is also, it's not impacting only the educational part of the kids. I think it's also impacting their social skills, their mental health. All the time they feel that, oh, we are in rush. All the time they are afraid that, oh, if they don't make it in line on time, they can go to the next activity. So thank you all.
Thank you. Nicola Russian, would you like to, yes. That works for us, thank you. You do have to use the microphone, though. That way everybody at home can hear you too.
My name is Nicola Russian. My husband Peter and I are in our 3rd year as US, Massachusetts and Brookline residents and taxpayers. I'm an active member of the Driscoll PTO to give back to the school and PSBMA because of what you have contributed to our kids' educational transformation since coming to the US and Brookline in 2023. A huge thank you. And because Driscoll is a public, not private school, benefiting children outside of the catchment area too, including METCO, special needs and labs, something that's very important to us. As parents of a current 3rd year grade neurotypical son at Driscoll, my husband and I too are concerned about class sizes, and we're part of the 79 signature petition to urge you to add an additional 4th grade. And we know that it's a crucial time to advocate for this. We understand that the 3rd grade cohort has continued to grow since the original petition, where all classes will have 24 to 25 students each by the end of the month, leaving it the 2nd largest grade in the district. And this will surely increase before year end based on precedent and given the mid-year placements that can come for Driscoll's very unique and special offering around lab. And notwithstanding that, students outside of lab criteria still with needs benefiting from its learning centre, and it's in specialist support. I first give evidence based on the research for class size reduction, known as CSR benefits, and then I'll give you evidence from our own experience of my 3 children. And I refer you to ClassSizeMatters.org, not-for-profit, which looks at the summary of research in this area. And these findings should be top of mind for Driscoll budgets, given what the school offers uniquely in the area as already described. At least, not great, sorry. At least 24 US states have mandated or incentivized CSR, although obviously it's under challenge in this economic environment, accepting the extra teacher costs associated. However, states rarely take the long-term payback and focus on short-term cash needs. Numerous studies in the Western world, and notably in the US, show variable but generally positive results, especially when class sizes range from 13 to 17, compared to 22, often considered optimal, not 25 plus. Lower student-teacher ratios have significant long-term impacts on student educational outcomes, better test math and English scores, for example, when decreased by 4 students, class engagement and other long-term outcomes. And a Tennessee STAR study revealed that students in smaller classes averaging between around 17 outperformed their peers in larger classes of 22 to 25, leading to longer-term educational attainment and wages later in life. And it seems that they have the largest impact when introduced in the earliest grades and for students from less advantaged family backgrounds. It allows for personalised attention to any child, targeted support and student engagement, as well as teacher motivation and bandwidth to provide the support needed. We know that motivated and engaged kids are better learners. Stressed brains don't, and overstimulated brains don't learn. And my dyslexic daughter she's now a straight A student at Brookline High School, 9th grade, and it's because of Driscoll, and it's because of the Learning Centre, and it's because of the lower class sizes. And I don't want my younger son to suffer. I don't want his friends to suffer. My son is at a private school in Brookline, in Boston, because we chose it for lower class sizes. He said we'd made a mistake at first, and now he's thanking us as he has reached his potential and now in moving on to university, because we were ahead of the game, because he had social needs and thought that larger classes would be better. So I know you've got difficult, tough decisions ahead. It requires trade-offs. I know that, but it's really important that learning-centered strategies are at the heart of decision-making and creating clear, the budgeting criteria are not clear at the moment. Stakeholders across schools, parents, etc., are confused at where where the money, who's responsible for what, where the money comes from. I'm on a PTO and we're already challenging back about what we're being asked to fund, which is the town responsibility. And I appreciate that there are many budgeting priorities, but class sizes are key, not just to the generation now, but the future economy. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Michael Rosenthal.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm on Zoom.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the group. I am another one of the Driscoll third grade parents, but I also have kids in PKB and in first grade. I'm also calling in because the class sizes have grown quite significantly, and we're starting to see impacts in our oldest daughter, who's in the third grade class now. I wanted to share some of those anecdotes, and in particular, as the class sizes have risen now up to about 24 in her class, I'm hearing more and more that she, as a good student who doesn't need a lot of hands-on attention usually, is not able to get her needs met. And when there are students who maybe need a little more attention and sometimes are disruptive in her area, she tends to fall into the background in that situation. And I think we can all agree that Brookline is a place where people can do wonderful things. We've had the joyous experience of having fantastic teachers every year for all of our girls, and we want to continue to have that be the case. We think that next year, as we stare into what could end up being 25, 26, 27 kids in each class, we're quite worried about that, and we hope that you will consider taking action to provide the kind of staffing we need for our kids next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now Alina Benoit.
Just hold it. All right. I'm terrible at public speaking, so I'm going to read this. My name is Alina Milner Benoit, and my son has been attending Driscoll since kindergarten, when he was one of about 17 or so kids in his section to start with. Now, as you've heard, he is now part of 24 in his class. I get daily reports from him about the disruption, daily noise level and the need to leave everything behind and move into a different room down the hall in order for the guidance counselor to intervene with the escalation of bad behavior in class. Our thoughts are that the current class size that is only projected to get larger is not developmentally appropriate for the 9-year-olds. This class size reduces individual attention. It is also unclear whether the increased disruptions are the cause or the symptom of this large size class, since there are some kids who seem to they were okay before and now they're not behaving age appropriately. Are the students with emotional issues or self-regulation issues overstimulated in this environment? And teachers are definitely spending disproportionate amount of time on redirecting or addressing these issues instead of teaching. What we, the parents, are seeing this year is that the increased class size is significantly impacting the instructional quality because teachers are spending more time managing behavior. And adding another section would allow more effective teaching, reduce instructor burnout, and create a safer environment for all the students. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Martin. And Martin, if you could introduce yourself with your last name so I know how to pronounce it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Martin Fischwein. I'm a Brookline resident and a Driscoll parent as well. So Apologies for being a bit repetitive, but this is a very important issue for all of us. Thank you for your time and for the opportunity to share these comments. And for all the work we do, we know that this is a hard job and that it's harder during tough times of financial challenges. We just want to encourage you to keep in mind the importance of class size. And this is as a concerned parent of a third grader, but also more broadly for all the Brookline schools as we face financial challenges. It might seem like it's possible to add another student to the class, but the consequences are non-trivial. And we see that from reports of our children, as you've been hearing from my fellow Driscoll parents. We all see that sort of like through the experiences of our children. But it also shows in well-established research that class size has very substantive implications for student achievement over the short, medium, and long run. It goes all the way to labor markets, and all the abilities of people to fulfill their opportunities throughout their lives can be impacted by class sizes. These impacts are not homogeneous. They are disproportional on kids that face more challenges, so there's also an equity concern here. And I think that for Brookline, it would be really great if we can meet this challenge by keeping what I think is part of our identity. When I moved to Brookline 10 years ago, just before my first child was born, Brookline schools were first and foremost in our mind. And it wasn't just about school quality, that was definitely important. It was about the fact that in Brookline we have excellence combined with inclusivity. And of course, this takes resources. And I know we face challenges, but I'm convinced that the alternative is worse. The research shows that class size has a fundamental impact on student achievement. And after 25, the impacts become nonlinear. There's the potential for really drastic reductions in quality. And this hopefully won't happen. If it does, it will show in the overall quality of our schools and in the way people see Brookline. I don't think this is a concern only of Driscoll parents or parents of school children. There are externalities. There are spillovers of school quality all throughout the community. This shows on real estate prices, to be concrete, but it also shows in the ability of a community to attract high-skilled, diverse people with high talent that are what make Brookline a great place to live and a dynamic community in economic and social terms. Thank you.
Thank you. On Zoom, we have Marie Radler.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi there. My name is Marie Radler. Thank you for hearing from me today. I'm a parent of 3 Driscoll children, one who is in the 3rd grade that we've been discussing tonight through other public comment. I'm here to just echo the concerns of everyone who has spoken thus far this evening and in prior sessions. One of the things that rings true to me and why Brookline was very attractive as a place to settle down and raise a family was because of the public schools. It's my understanding that the public schools of Brookline, elementary and otherwise, are guided by certain core values, and those include high achievement for all, excellence in teaching, and educational equity. And the current class size of the Driscoll 3rd grade school presents challenges to actually meeting those core values. With the current class sizes of 24 and growing students in the 3rd grade, we've heard from other members of the community and parents talk about how class size is correlated to achievement. This certainly presents a challenge to achievement if the goal, the core value of Brookline Public Schools is high achievement for all. Increased class sizes will inevitably result in a real challenge of meeting that core value for this current 3rd grade cohort. And so I would just, among the other parents, implore the committee to truly assess the current class size of the 3rd grade Driscoll school and increase a fourth section as the school was designed to accommodate. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. We're going to move on to school committee actions, and our first one is the competency determination policy and updates to the high school graduation requirements. This is our second reading and possible vote.
Sure, and obviously, Robin Benoit is here. Anthony Meyer and Hal Mason are also sort of on call if you have any questions.
So we have discussed this previously, and I maybe would like to start our conversation out tonight by asking somebody to move the vote, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
So moved.
I'm happy to move it.
And seconded? Great, thank you.
Yep.
Are we voting? What are we?
We're voting on the draft that we see in our packet, and it's the high school graduation requirements that we've read before,
And the
and
competency.
and the competency as well.
We're doing this one pack.
Yep. Go ahead, Andy.
My question is just whether there are any changes since the first reading.
No, there are no changes.
None. Okay.
Okay,
I'd
with
like
that,
to
we're
call
going
for a
to,
vote. Yeah, great.
great. Bob, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Mariah? Maybe Mariah stepped away, and
No, I'm
Val?
here. Sorry,
Oh,
struggling.
sorry.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. And Val?
I vote yes with gratitude to Robin, Anthony, and Hal.
Thank you for that. And I vote, and the chair votes, and the vice chair votes yes as well. So tonight we have discussion and vote to accept the superintendent's recommendation to appoint Dr. Robin Benoit as deputy superintendent for teaching and learning. So Bella, would you like to, actually, we'll start by moving it. So Suzanne moves it, and second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Sorry, we got Carolyn, right, a second before you. And Bella, I wanted to know if you wanted to start out our conversation.
Sure. I did send a memo, and the memo came out today, so I apologize if you didn't have a time to review it. Just to remind everyone, when I arrived in July, there was a vacancy in the deputy superintendent position for the Office of Teaching and Learning. And so one of the first, actually the most critical task was to fill that position. And the pool was small, but there was this application in there that caught my eye at the time. And also there were references that I knew attached to that application, and I reached out to them. And we had a full interview team, representative curriculum coordinators and principals, and actually, I don't know if Susan was part of it at first, and you definitely got us going. And I presented Robin as the candidate for consideration, and the team actually, I think they interviewed her for almost 2 hours. They pretty much got to ask everything under the sun that they wanted, and so they did that, and then they unanimously supported Robin to move forward. And an important thing to note is that Robin had not served in the role before, so they really wanted to ask her everything, maybe with a bit of skepticism. So they asked everything, and she passed her muster and went through. Now, I have been so pleased, actually, of Robin's progress, again, as someone who hasn't done it before, how she has stepped in to the role, and she certainly was ready, is ready, has been ready, as her references would attest. And so once the committee made me permanent, then it was almost like, oh yeah, great, you're here. Now what are you going to do about the rest of the team? And so, so that's part of the timing. Also, since for the first few months of our being together, we would have ideas about how to move forward, and sometimes it would come up, you know, well, how do we know you're going to be here, you know, in a year to be able to do this? And so this is why I also think it's important to move forward. We are in a state of change, and we want to be able to move with certitude, as it just seems everything is important, needs to be done now as we're doing this. And so, so then I thought, well, how am I processing this? So this is about the time we would think about posting and going through applications, but I also feel remiss to do that if I really feel there's someone inside that I feel strongly about, to make people go through that process. So what I did to process is I met with every single person that Robin works with directly. So every single curriculum coordinator and other staff members, including our AD, of course, Malcolm, our building principals, the other members of the leadership team. And I was also able to check in with some of the school committee members that I met with one-on-one recently. And it was all positive, you know, unanimously positive. People acknowledged that Robin is new to the role and she's growing, but the comments that were quite consistent was that they've been so impressed, whether they've spent a lot of time with Robin or just some time. And people said, even though I've only spent some time, my interaction has only been, an impression is positive, and they look forward to knowing Robin more. But there are also a number of people that have spent a lot of time with Robin, especially around the literacy, around the development of vision of a learner, and also setting forth competency determination and preparing for the curriculum review that's coming in the spring. Getting ready for the MCAS presentation. So she's actually been, you actually have probably been most exposed of any group to the work that Robin has done this year, because she has come to you for multiple presentations. And so again, the comments have been the calm, and so see if these, you know, you have them in your memorandum, but the calm demeanor and professionalism. She leads with listening, she leads with curiosity. People really feel that she doesn't jump in with a predisposed idea, that she really listens and then contemplates, comes back and is reflective in her entry to public schools of Brookline. She also, they find her helpful with problem solving, and people have been thoroughly impressed with the range of technical expertise you're able to offer, even at this early stage of entering this role. And people also have been impressed with with Robin's responsiveness, timely and always respectful. So I think people are looking forward to having more of Robin around and growing together. And I will also speak on behalf of the senior leadership team that we all feel really fortunate to be able to have stepped into a team of each other, and feel that we have found that we work really well together. And there's a lot of work that has been in front of us. And it's good to feel that you have a partnership that works well at the senior leadership level. Anyway, I'm very pleased to recommend or seek your approval of our appointment going to permanent. And I hope you say yes, and then I look forward to working with Robin.
Thank you. Not able to see online if anybody has their hand up. Bob?
We're going to have a conversation?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Robin, when I first looked at your resume, I went, not that much experience certainly at this level. However, you have demonstrated powerfully to me that you're an incredibly quick study. I felt that every presentation that you made before us has been incredibly well prepared, very eloquent, interesting. And so I ran for school committee because I was concerned about lack of stability in our senior leadership and our leadership in general. And so I'm very, very excited to hear that we're going to have stability with Bella and now with Robin, and hopefully continue in that vein. So I'm very supportive of Robin's recommendation. Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Robin.
Carolyn.
Not to belabor, but Bella, I really,
Some feedback.
I appreciated this memo, Bella. I'm assuming it's in the meeting materials or will be so the public can see, but a long bullet list of the feedback. And I circled leads with curiosity, which I really love, clear thinker, which I think we've seen, clear thinker, clear speaker. I talked to you about that in our one-on-one. I've really appreciated Robin's very clear and professional and maybe sort of jargon-free presentations. So exciting for you and us.
I don't think any of us need to repeat what's already been said. I just was, I agreed with everything that Bob said, and then I was waiting for you to also say that being a member of the team, so that Bella came on with a team that was already assembled, and now she's choosing to keep Robin. That's really important to me as well, so that the team continues on. So I'd like to call for a vote if there isn't somebody online with their hand up. All right, and let's start with Bob.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Carolyn?
Yes. Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to us.
We're moving on to presentations and discussion of current issues. We have a presentation, discussion, and vote on the Climate Leaders application, including the town's municipal decarbonization roadmap and the fleet management, electrification, and vehicle replacement policy. It looks like we're going to hear from Erin Shute to begin.
Yeah, and I think that maybe I just have to hold that a little closer. Chair, if you want to go ahead and bring up the presentation, and I'll just do, oh, it's up. Perfect. Okay. Good evening. My name is Erin Chute. I'm the Commissioner of Public Works in Brookline, and it's my pleasure to introduce our Deputy Director of Sustainability, Shelley Dean. She will be leading the presentation and discussion this evening. Shelley joined our team about 7 months ago, and we are really excited to have her technical expertise and knowledge to support our climate action work, which is advancing in really exciting ways. Alexandra Vecchio, our Director of Sustainability and Natural Resources, who you all know, sends her apologies for not being here this evening, but she's actually out of state officiating a wedding. So tonight, we're here to talk about the Climate Leader Communities Program. It is a new program through the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. It affords certified communities the opportunity to apply for up to $1.15 million in grant funding for projects per year that help decarbonize our buildings and fleet. In order to become a certified climate leader community, we have to meet certain criteria, which Shelley will discuss. Some of these Brookline has already met, but there are two specific requirements that staff have been working on over the last several months that will prepare us for the next CLC application deadline of December 31st, 2025, specifically a zero emission vehicle first policy, which really codifies our current practice, and a decarbonization roadmap.
This evening, we want to share those with you and are seeking a vote of adoption from the school committee. I'm pleased to share that we met with the select board on Tuesday and received a unanimous vote of support for both the decarbonization roadmap and the zero emission vehicle first fleet policy. And we also have Kevin Johnson online. He is our Deputy Commissioner of Operations, the Director of Highway Sanitation and Fleet Services, if there are any questions. And with that, I will turn it over to Shelley.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be terrific. Thank you so much. So and very nice to meet many of you. I don't think I've had the opportunity to meet you before. Thank you. So I am Shelley Dean. I am the Deputy Director of Sustainability, and tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Climate Leaders Program, which requires that Brookline's public school district adopt two documents, the Zero Emissions Vehicle First policy, as well as the Municipal Decarbonization Roadmap. And the Climate Leaders Community Program, as was mentioned, is a statewide program that certifies, that builds on the Green Communities Program. Brookline has been in the Green Communities Program for 14 years, and the Green Communities Program has helped install LED lighting in many schools and a number of other activities throughout the town to reduce our to reduce our municipal energy use. The Climate Leaders Program, which builds on this, is not only to reduce our energy use, but to make sure that we are reducing our greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. So it really has to do with electrifying the town's assets. The impetus behind this is to help communities meet the state's clean energy and climate plan, which sets the goal of net zero emissions by 2050. And Brookline has also set that same goal. Thus far, there are 28 communities that have been accepted into the Climate Leaders Program, and some of them are our neighbors. They include Cambridge, Lexington, Watertown, and many others. The reason for this program, the reason why this program, actually, if you don't mind going to the next slide, the reason why this program is so important, as Commissioner Hsu identified, is that it brings us the opportunity to have significant funding for us to pursue our goals. And those goals being the increasing the energy efficiency of our buildings, using energy management services, and even in things like installing local energy generation on municipal assets. So that would be, for example, installing solar arrays on our schools. And the Climate Leaders Program funding is really critical to help us meet those goals. Next slide, if you don't mind. So to apply for this program, there are 6 requirements. We have to be a community in good standing, which we are, a green community, sorry, not just a community, a green community in good standing. We need to have established a local community group that advises the town on clean energy matters, and we've done that through the Zero Emissions Advisory Board. We need to have demonstrated a municipal decarbonization commitment, which the town has done by setting goals to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We need to develop and adopt a municipal decarbonization roadmap, and that's one of those actions that's before us tonight. We need to adopt a zero emissions vehicle policy, again, another action that's before us tonight. And as a community, we need to adopt the specialized stretch energy code, which the town did a while ago. So I'm going to start tonight by talking about the zero emissions vehicle first policy. And that policy prioritizes that when new vehicles are purchased, that we purchase zero emission vehicles over traditional internal combustion engine vehicles. And it sets a very clear order of prioritization. The first are fully electric vehicles. The second, if that's not available, are plug-in hybrid vehicles. The third being hybrid vehicles. And then the fourth being traditional internal combustion engine vehicles. Emergency vehicles are exempt from this policy, and the policy has been shared and reviewed by all department heads. The good news for the town is that this isn't a heavy lift. The town has already been basically following this policy for years, and so it really codifies something that's already in practice in the town. Next slide, please. So just as an example, Brookline has about 390 vehicles in our fleet. That doesn't include fire trucks. Those are special. In 2022, sorry, the town owned one fully electric vehicle. At this point today, the town owns 34 fully electric vehicles, as well as a number of hybrid vehicles. My understanding is that the school department has one of the hybrid vehicles. I think the school department, and I believe that the school department has nine vehicles. So, you know, as vehicles turn over, we look for opportunities to replace them, always with the most efficient vehicle that's out there, and ideally as an electric vehicle. I think, I guess one other thing that I want to say, which is the fact that the town has advanced so much on this front, that the town already has 34 fully electric vehicles, is really a standard that many other communities are quite jealous about and quite in awe about. I was recently at a conference where Alexandra was speaking about the town's accomplishments in terms of electric vehicle, the electrification of the town's fleet, and there was a noticeable, you know, gasp of like, oh my God, I can't believe you've done that. That's terrific. So, and it certainly made me very proud. I know it makes everyone in Brookline quite proud. Next slide, please. The other thing I want to talk about is the municipal decarbonization roadmap. And that roadmap is a very high-level review of both the buildings that the town has as well as the vehicles that the town has. And the reason why it concentrates on both of those is because together, between the buildings, which generate about 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions from municipal assets, and the vehicles, which generate around 15%, that's 95% of the greenhouse gas emissions on municipal operations. So those are both very, very important. So the roadmap really is a very high-level view of looking at those assets and trying to see if it is possible to make them electrified so that there will be no fossil fuel use by the year of 2050. And then it sets some interim goals. The roadmap looks at it is, I think the roadmap was in the package that got distributed. It's a very prescribed format, and it requires, for example, that the year 2022 be our baseline year. It assumes that there are trigger events at the natural time that we would be retiring heating systems or hot water systems, that we would be replacing them because they've gotten to the end of their useful life, or at the time when we would be retiring vehicles because those two are at the end of their useful life, that those are the opportunities when we would electrify them. Obviously, we have the choice to do it ahead of schedule, but the report basically assumes that we would be doing things at the end of their useful life, as well as when we're installing new roofs on our buildings. Those are the times when we would be looking at installing solar arrays. The roadmap has been reviewed by our staff as well as by the public, our staff meaning sustainability, but also it has been reviewed by the Public Buildings Department as well. I want to preempt a question that I'm sure I'll get, which has to do with cost, and the roadmap specifically does not deal with cost. It doesn't deal with cost, and it doesn't deal with any funding that could be available. It's a 25-year look ahead, and it really is just a high-level feasibility analysis. Before the roadmap becomes actionable, schematic designs would need to be done for specific buildings. Then more detailed engineering studies would need to be done, and those are the points when costs would really be analyzed. Next slide, please. So on the building side, we asked our consultant to formally analyze 22 of the town's buildings. And we identified the 22 buildings that represent and that emit about 85% of the municipal building emissions. So we were really looking at the buildings where there are the biggest opportunities for savings. Many, but not all of those buildings are schools. You can see the buildings listed there. You know, it starts with Brookline High School going on to Runkle and others. I also included at the bottom right-hand side, the other buildings that the town has that collectively generate about 15% of the building emissions. What you'll notice, for example, on this list is that some of the buildings that we know will soon be all electric or that currently are all electric, like the Driscoll School, but also things like the fire stations were not identified as the top emitters, but were included in the additional municipal building section. Next slide, please. So what the roadmap found, and again, it's a very prescribed report, so there wasn't a lot of flexibility here, but the baseline year is 2022, and we looked at emissions from 2022. And then we looked at emissions 5 years later, which is 2027, and then 2030, 2040, and 2050. And what we see is that the expectation is that we can reduce our fossil fuel use by the year 2050. That's true of buildings, and it's true of our vehicles. It assumes a much slower adoption of electric vehicles for our heavy-duty fleet, because those makes and models are just not commercially, some of them are not commercially available yet, though I'm happy to report that the town, in fact, has an electric trash truck already. So there are a few heavy-duty vehicles that the town has that we have electric options. It may look like the first milestone is only, well, the first milestone is only 2 years away. And that might look ambitious to you, but I want to again point out that the town already owns 34 electric vehicles. We're not starting from zero now. We're starting from zero in 2022, and obviously with the Pierce School and with Driscoll and Fire Station number 4. And Fire Station number 1 soon thereafter, we are in fact moving ahead in terms of electrifying our buildings and reducing our emissions significantly. Next slide, please. So where we're at now is, you know, as the commissioner mentioned, we went before the select board earlier this week, and we received their approval to adopt both the municipal decarbonization roadmap as well as the zero emissions vehicle policy. It's worded slightly differently. It's the fleet management, electrification, and vehicle replacement policy, but that's in essence what it is. And now we are respectfully requesting that the school committee consider both of those and consider adoption of those as well. If we are able to receive positive votes tonight, the town will be in a position to be able to submit our application before the December 31st deadline. And again, you know, we think that's important because that opens up a whole new round of funding for us, so source of funding for us. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Carolyn.
Thank you very much for that. I actually have a bunch of questions, but I'll start with one. So you explained that none of this has any costs associated that you can tell us. Although I'm sure there are a lot of things that could be reported, like about what we've spent so far compared to what we would be spending, for example, on vehicles if they weren't electric, et cetera. But specifically in the memo, it says to determine the feasibility of executing this roadmap and the associated costs, a technical assessment will be required. So is that done by staff or is that an outside consultant? And either way, what is the cost of the assessment to assess the costs of electrifying everything?
So, the expectation is that over time we will be assessing things over time. We won't do a full assessment of the to project 25 years ahead at this moment. As there are opportunities that come up, one of the sources of funding for the Climate Leaders Program is to fund those kinds of assessments. So I think I mentioned that we're eligible up for $1,150,000. $150,000 is available to do to do those kinds of technical studies.
Sorry, and I'm going to dialogue, sorry for a sec. Is that in both cases, the 1.5 and the 150,000, that's the pot of money in this program that would be divided, or that's per municipality?
It is my understanding that we would need to apply for it.
Yep.
Right? But my understanding is that each municipality has access to that. And it's not just my understanding, that's what's written. Each municipality has access to that if you are accepted as a climate leader community.
All right, just to zero in on this a little bit. One, the sort of the comment or question around the vehicles, I just want to make it clear, this isn't mandating a replacement of vehicles now. It's really just a decision-making process when we are replacing vehicles and looking at most fuel efficient first. So you're always going to look at your operation, you're always going to look at your needs, you're going to look at all of that. And so it's really saying we're going to look at most fuel efficient first. In terms of the grant, each municipality can access up to 1.15 per year, and it depends on the project. So it's not saying you're definitely going to get that.
I understand.
It's all contingent upon the project you're applying for. And in terms of technical analysis, for example, we're working on the solar installation at Pierce.
And so working with a consultant on the technical specifications for that will be very specific for peers. So each project is going to require its own, its own analysis for the specification.
And my question is what the cost of those technical analyses are, and whether those are done by outside consultants or Brookline staff.
It'll depend on the project, and the costs will vary depending on the size and scope, and we'll be working with the building department on those.
Okay, and then in terms of the grant money that's available, I'm assuming, or this is a question, would that be to supplement initiatives, or is the notion that that would sort of fully fund initiatives?
I think it can be both.
Okay, thank you.
Mariah?
Thank you. And thanks for the really interesting presentation. And it's really great to see how I'm always so impressed by particularly DPW, but other departments too, but DPW doing a great job of long-term planning, and this is no exception. So thank you for that. I have a couple of different questions, some of which are process questions for, I think, you, Sarah, or possibly Val. One of these is a policy that we're expected to adopt. Do I presume that that would run through policy rather than, we're not being asked to vote this tonight because it hasn't gone through policy, right?
I think we are voting
I thought
because
we
it
were-
has to be in advance of an application that's due on December 31st.
So we're not following our process. We're voting this policy absent sort of, well, I guess I'll ask another question. Has our staff had time to review all of this to share with us any implications on PSB specifically, both the roadmap and the policy specifically?
We haven't had a chance to review it, but it doesn't mean that we don't support it. I mean, in its sustainability goals. And to Mariah's question, I don't know whether, because this is a policy already developed, so I don't know if the policy subcommittee is a policy that you are, no.
Well, this is a
okay,
town
we will
policy.
modify. Right, but this one already, as a.
But it's not
like,
our
I guess-
policy. It doesn't apply to us, right? Like, so.
Right, so that's why I was saying maybe it was, when things go through policy subcommittee, you're developing them, but this is developed. It's being presented as something.
But we
that
haven't even had a first reading and a second reading, which is, I think, part of our policy that we have to have multiple readings at full school committee.
Of our own policies. I think this is a policy that is brought to us from the town side. And correct me if I'm wrong, Erin, this needs to be voted as is because that's how it was voted at select board. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep, it does need to be voted as is. We did share information with staff regarding the policy for the vehicles with what we thought was time to review and provide any comment. I will say though that in adopting this, and if you want to then go through your process, and if there's some wordsmithing that you want to do in the future, we could modify it and, bring it back to the select board. But I think we do want to try to make this December 31st date so that we can potentially seek some really significant grant funding to do this important work.
Thank you for the clarifications.
And it's not committing the school department or the school committee to anything financially right now in terms of adopting these policies, and anything that we do would come back to the school committee.
Andy.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I do have a question. So I understand that this doesn't make us do anything at the moment. If in the future we were to want to acquire vehicles for transporting students, like our own vehicles, like vans or buses, how constrained would we be by this policy? Would we have to only source electric buses, for example, if we wanted our own buses?
So you would look at that first. We actually just worked with the senior center, and they have acquired an electric bus to transport seniors. So there are great options out there for that. So that's what you would be looking at first. If there was some operational reason why that wouldn't work for the schools, then you would kind of go down in the hierarchy in terms of hybrid type options, and potentially justify and make a decision for a different model bus.
Would finances be an acceptable justification? Again, if it's just going to be a lot more expensive
Well, finances do apply to operations.
Okay, so it counts as operational if it's
That's
going to
right.
cost more. Okay.
Bob?
I'm sorry, before
Yeah.
you go on, could you repeat that last point? Did the finances allow you to override the electric or not?
Well, I think that we have a little bit of a disagreement in terms of viability in terms of operations. So it's not explicit in the policy. It will be, in essence, I think in terms of practicality, if we can't fund a particular model, then it doesn't fit and support our operations.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep, I'll give you an example. We do have an electric vehicle, which is a electric packer. We use that for our yard waste collection. We were able to get a very significant grant in order to acquire that vehicle. But if we were to go, while electric is out there, they can't even make those packers as quickly as we would in other communities need them for their operations. So there are a whole host of reasons why, even if something exists on the market, it may not be ready for Brookline at that particular point in time.
Bob?
Yeah, thank you. I just feel compelled to state that as our national government seems to be dashing into the dark ages on climate and science in general, it is very refreshing to be in Brookline, Massachusetts, in the Hanukkah season of light, because Brookline clearly is moving forward, in contrast to my deep, deep concerns about what's going on in the nation. So I want to thank you for working hard on this and dealing with some of the issues that are presented to us, and thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn?
Thanks. I have another question going back to the vehicles. So in roughly 3 years, the town has purchased 34 fully electric vehicles. So is there any kind of financial analysis that's been done in terms of what those vehicles cost versus what non-electric vehicles would have cost, and also what the ongoing costs are?
So I'll turn to Kevin, but I will say that for those acquisitions, we were able to leverage grant funds. We were able to leverage ARPA dollars. Like, we were able to upgrade the fleet very economically and taking advantage of multiple funding opportunities. So I think it's going to vary a little bit over time. There still remain funding opportunities for both charging facilities and for electrification of our fleet that we're accessing that have made these purchases very financially competitive for the town. But Kevin, you can, I think the full analysis that you're asking for, I do not have to present to you tonight.
Kevin, there's time.
So, hello, Kevin Johnson, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Highway and Sanitation Director, and Fleet Maintenance. As the Commissioner says, we don't have a full analysis for the entire fleet, but I did do an analysis on the 9 vehicles that the school department has, just for a reference for tonight. And right now, the actual value of your vehicles is roughly $250,000. And if we were to replace those vehicles today that are eligible to be replaced fully electric, it would cost us about $430,000 to $450,000. So out of the 9 vehicles that is in the school department, there's only 1 vehicle that we do not have a replacement that we could use, is the small van that has refrigeration in it. So I don't know if that explains it a little bit better, but there is a significant cost increase to go electric. But as the commissioner said, with these grants, we are hopeful that they will meet in the middle where a regular combustion engine would cost, and the grants would take us to the next level of the cost for the electric vehicle.
Donna?
Hi, thank you so much. This was, I want to recognize all the effort that went into this, and the information is incredibly helpful. I was hoping I could zoom out maybe more on the schools, or like to understand the process on the school side. This would potentially have financial implications for our budget. Is that accurate?
And I would defer to Susan.
Might it have financial implications?
I'm glad, yeah. So when you're looking at the roadmap, a lot of that will be initiatives that the Sustainability Office is working with the building department on energy efficiency in the buildings, at looking at solar opportunities, at things like that, that are not part of the school operating budget and hopefully would actually yield savings over time. So as we're looking at solar long-term, we're looking to meet climate goals, but also realize savings. So I don't see those as having budget impacts. I think the decision-making around the electric vehicles is something we're all going to need to think about, and I think work hard at finding grants that will close that gap on the difference between EV and internal combustion vehicles. But also the technology there is changing very rapidly, and we can, over time, be moving to some of the smaller EV vehicles that hopefully will be very competitive in terms of costs in the near future. So we're hoping those costs actually come down, the differences overall are smaller.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is whether I can have an assurance from either our superintendent or from Dr. Givens that they feel comfortable with any potential financial implications that the vote might have tonight. Or can you flag anything for us before we vote, if we were to vote? I feel like there's no financial analysis, so I'm a little bit confused about the process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my comments would just be based on what I'm hearing tonight. I think Andy's question about if we were to purchase buses, because I did look at that a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, electric buses are significantly more expensive. And also you have to have the infrastructure in order to be able to charge them. So based on that, we were, kind of pumped the brakes on it because it was not really within our, financial ability to pursue that. So if it's a choice that should we decide that we are going to bring in an in-house fleet of some sort, and one of the factors can be whether you're paying $800,000 or $400,000 for the vehicle, it matters. So, but if we have a grant and that offsets that cost, then you can have savings on the other hand, because then we wouldn't be paying for fuel. So I think each situation would be unique, and we would have to evaluate the circumstances, grant availability, et cetera. But as long as you can take all those things into consideration, from what I'm hearing, and you can, then I don't see a harm in supporting this proposal.
Carolyn?
I recognize I've spoken a few times. I just want to make sure there's nobody else waiting. Okay. I'm going to sort of respond to Donna with my perspective, which is not the technical one. So I think that anything that costs the town money does have implications for the school department and school operations ultimately, right? Because when things get tighter for the town, when there's pressures on town finances, when we're in an override year and we're determining, what the split will be, to my way of thinking, it's all holistic. And obviously, it goes without saying that we all would like to reduce emissions and care about climate change. As stewards of a municipal budget, or for my perspective, in that role, is to have to balance what we'd like versus what we can afford. I'm a little haunted always by some of my early conversations with members of ZIAB, like literally somebody who said, I don't care what it costs. I just want everything electrified. And I don't feel that as an elected person and a school committee member that I do care what it costs. It's my responsibility to care what it costs. And we are in an override year. There was this survey that went out about the potential override. Climate initiatives were not a high priority in the responses. Again, that has nothing to do with my own personal view, but I have concerns about this. I have concerns about being locked into a policy that is then referred back to reason spending that I'm not sure we can afford or that is a top priority given all of the things we would like. So that's my perspective there.
Thank you. Suzanne?
So I think as a policy, this makes a lot of sense for the town, that this is what we're based on, that what we aspire to. It may not be what we get or how far we get, but it's aspirational in some sense. I would hate for us to leave money on the table if we have a chance to have $1.15 million towards this effort. It's maybe just not the schools, but the whole town. I think that's really worth considering. And I think, again, we've had some of these conversations around our new school buildings, talking about geothermal, solar panels, and we know that up front, sometimes it costs more money, but in the long run, it's going to save us money. It may be 10 years. I don't know how long it will take for payback. It may take some time, but I think this is the direction we want to go. We've not been unhappy. We look at what the Driscoll School is doing in terms of emissions, and we're pleased. We're pleased. And so I think it is forward-thinking to think about a policy like this. I'm not saying committing to millions of dollars. I'm not suggesting that. But I am suggesting that as a policy to guide us, that this is where we want to go as a community.
Thank you. Mariah?
Thanks. Just a follow-up about the busing. Does this policy affect only purchased vehicles, or does it affect our current service contracts with the bus companies that we have?
It's acquisitions.
Okay, thank you.
So to be clear about that, Andy's question was if we did consider purchase. So should we move on to a vote? Okay.
If I can just respond, I appreciate what you're saying, Suzanne. I just want to respond. You're bringing up the Driscoll School, which is valid. So yes, it may be that geothermal and solar will save money on the town's bills in the long run, but that money doesn't come back to the taxpayers who have paid for it. So anytime we're making a capital investment, whether it's vehicles or other kinds of infrastructure, that costs the taxpayers money. So, and then it might save money later in revenue that goes towards the bills. But I have the taxpayers in mind when I'm thinking about this.
I'd like to call for a vote to adopt the municipal decarbonization roadmap and fleet management, the electrification, and the vehicle replacement policy.
Can I make I don't know what the motion is, but to split the vote?
Okay, so what would you like to split it into?
The two bits, the roadmap separate from the policy?
The roadmap separate from the policy.
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to, does anybody, I guess I will, would somebody like to make the motion? Or is that the motion when with? Okay, I'd like to make the motion to adopt the roadmap.
What did Mariah just say?
We're going to separate out the roadmap from the policy.
So what would that mean exactly?
We are going to first vote for one and then vote for the other. So the first vote would be for the municipal decarbonization roadmap, and the second vote would be for the fleet management, electrification, and vehicle.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
But what does it mean for their application is my question.
Well,
But
why
we
don't we
will
do
not
the
submit
vote then
this year.
before you worry about the split? Both of them are going to get voted.
I understand that, but I'd like to know if it's split and something doesn't pass, what happens to their application?
We cannot submit it.
Thank you.
Sarah, may I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Before we go to vote? What is the actual roadmap? Is it? Okay. Got it. That's, okay.
It's like 43 pages or something.
Mariah, knowing that the impact on
Yes.
the application, do you still want, we didn't get a second, so do you still want to separate the vote?
Yes. I'll
Okay.
second split it. I will second the motion. Like you made a motion to do the roadmap. I'll second your motion to vote the roadmap.
Okay, so I'm going to begin the other way around this time. Val, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Donna?
We're voting the roadmap?
The roadmap?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Abstain.
Bob?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Does anybody want to make a motion for the policy?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
I second.
So beginning again with Val, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mariah?
I abstain only from a procedural reason.
Thank you. Donna?
No.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Carolyn?
No.
Bob?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Did it carry?
Can you confirm the vote tally?
Motion
please, Paul?
passes.
5 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain.
Sorry, your mic wasn't on. Do you mind repeating? Thank you.
5 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstain. So it passed.
And what was the
So-
first one?
7 yes, 1 abstain. Yes, 7 yes, 1 abstain.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you all. I look forward to working with Superintendent Wong on this. And we have heard all of your questions, all of your concerns, both in terms of operations, in terms of cost, in terms of responsibility to the taxpayers. So we hear you on all of that. We share your collective goals, and that will be part of our rollout. So we look forward to coming back to you and reporting on our overall progress. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to the update to the multi-year budget projection with Susan Givens.
And me. So
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to talk through the slides. I think Betsy's going to help us run the slides. I just need to check. Susan, was everyone supposed to have this as well? They do? Do you? I didn't see them. Okay, great. All right, so you should have a one-pager that has the multi-year projection as it stands at the moment, plus the prior 3 years, all right? And so that'll get printed out, and you will have it, but Betsy also said she was gonna help me run the slides. While I'm talking through slides, it's Susan Givens who really did all the work, the bulk of the work, along with everyone else contributing, the other members of the senior leadership team, the building principals, the other budget preparers. So I have in mind one of our parents that spoke tonight about how the budget process is confusing to them. So I just want to say that it's our hope and intention to speak clearly in ways that everyone will be able to understand. And by all means, if something isn't clear, to ask. The budget, I mean, we have a $143 million budget, so there are many pieces to it, and all the lines that make up the budget, it can make the process seem kind of daunting about what goes where, what comes from where. So this is just an overview to provide an orientation to where we are in the moment. We have $142,792,591 budget approved for FY26. That money reflects an increase over the prior year of $5,944,973. And so just to understand that is a town allocation, and the other number was the increase we received this year over last year, 4.3%. What it takes to run the schools is actually a bigger number. So there are other funding resources, grants, particularly state grants, federal grants, local grants. So that's not the entirety of what it costs to run the schools. But that is the town allocation for us, and it represented a 4.3% increase over the prior year. Coming into this year, the district also, the school committee approved taking $1,943,064 from a revolving account, the circuit breaker revolving account. That happened, and those were monies that were intended for FY27. So that's the context where we are in the moment. The allocation from the town, recognizing the increase in that allocation from the town, recognizing that to fund this year's budget, we drew from a revolving account from funds that were intended for FY27. If you take that number and convert it to a percent over FY25, it's 1.4%. So in some ways, you can look at it as a 5.7% for practical purposes in terms of allocation of additional funding. At this time, the town has not yet determined a FY27 allocation for the school department. So just to understand that all the numbers presented tonight, the forecast, is not being offset by a proposed town allocation. We do appreciate that the town allocation, that the town has been, has done their presentations about, not being able to determine what an allocation might be. But to underscore that at this time last year, December of last year, there were at least some monies that were being committed, and actually those monies increased by the time the budget was finally approved, right? So it's just to keep in mind, these are numbers without an allocation. Thank you. Susan, you can just chime in if I miss something. Yeah. Slide 1. All right. Yes.
Sorry, I will jump in and ask a clarifying question. When you just said those, what did you say, those funds weren't committed or the monies were, what do you mean when you say that?
Oh, so at this time last year, there was some monies that were designated for the town, for the school budget. But that allocation grew over time. But I also want to be careful to say that we shouldn't assume that even if, we shouldn't assume anything about what could be the allocation or the size of the allocation. We do hope there will be some allocation, but you have to look at all the numbers we're presenting. So in the past, we might have said, this is what we project for an increase. This is minus the town allocation, and there's your gap, right? Right now, the gap theoretically is the entirety of the increase that we are looking for next year. I do also want to make it clear that as we're talking about a budget that we're building, we're talking about a level service budget. We're talking about a budget, actually more than level service. We're looking at a budget that the school committee created budget guidelines for. You had aspirational goals for us to meet, all right? So this is a budget that we are developing that we would propose is something that would meet the guidance of the school committee. This is a budget that we would want to have, hope to have. So at this time, the development of the FY27 budget remains in progress. The forecast will change as more work is completed, but I also want to say that the bulk of the work is 100% done, and that all the parts that are not yet done are at least 80 to 90% complete, right? So a substantial part of the work has been done, and we're going to do our best to provide some clarity about the areas that still need to be done. But I just want to let everyone know that Susan in particular, taking all the information from our budget preparers, has been getting to the end, and it's been a substantial amount of work and time. The multi-year forecast presented tonight is lower than the last reported on 11/13. So the first one we presented was 9% for FY27. So those are the numbers. This is the new forecast, new multi-year forecast that we are offering for tonight. Our hope is that whatever number we present, that we are using conservative assumptions. We're working hard to refine those numbers, but that we won't give you a bigger number next time, that we're trying to make sure that the number we give you is the number we have, and then we're trying to work to see if we can improve on that number while meeting the guidance that you all gave us, right? So you can see on that chart, on that slide, the new number is on the left. The former number from a month ago is on the right. And so we, Susan, everyone, have improved the number significantly for next year, 6.97%. As we fine tune the number for FY27, you will see the numbers for FY28 and FY29 shift. Thank you, Betsy. So again, the development of the budget remains in process, and sorry, this looks like it's a multiple one, but it's okay. That's a repeat, my fault. I just have to delete it from the, yeah. Just to acknowledge, when we're doing the budget, there's an annual budget prep that Susan does every year. So it's just looking at steps and lanes, possible COLA, because we are negotiating 6 contracts this year. Staffing changes, meaning people who are on leaves of absence, are they coming back? Are they leaving? Do we have people who've declared they're retiring? Do we have anticipated retirements? And then fund allocation is that salary being charged to a grant? Is it being charged to the general fund? Where's the source of funding for it? Again, the budget number you present is not, it's absent the grants. It's what remains that becomes funded by the town. There's always space program utilization, looking at enrollment. We're always looking at our educational programs, reviewing and our assessments. We want to make sure that what we're funding is in alignment to the strategic plan, meaning supporting realization of its projected outcomes. And we're always looking at special revenue fund and fee assessment. And there's always operations, food, transportation, buildings, et cetera. It's data, it's everything to sustain the operations of the school district. That's the annual work. This year, recognizing that it is a potential override year, and also recognizing that we had a very challenging budget cycle coming into this year. So some of the guidance categories that were created were to look at efficiencies, reorganization, restoration, reduction, and new growth. So this is what we all supported at the beginning of this process. But as we do the work, it actually is tricky reporting out strictly in those categories. So I just want to be open about that. So we're going to try to do our best to recognize and align with the guidance that we all agreed to. But in fact, sometimes an efficiency and a reorganization may give you funding for a new growth. So when we put them all in those boxes, they're not fitting as neatly as we thought. So we may want to talk about how we're going to do these boxes, or we're going to keep them either way. But and just to be clear, when we identify an efficiency, that's not a reduction in service. An efficiency is a less expensive way to do something that will achieve what we need to achieve, right? So when we identify efficiencies, that's a good thing. We are still offering the same service, but found a way to do it more economically. Reorganization, moving things around, maybe different titles, consolidating functions in a new position versus where it was. Reorganization may realize an efficiency, or we might even get a restoration out of it. This is where the boxes didn't work for us. But how we got there was a reorganization. Restoration may result from a reorganization. So you might see us trying to attempt to put things in a box and another box because it kind of fit the different boxes. Then there's reductions. And again, this budget that is being worked on is the budget we're proposing to meet the needs of the district, to meet the budget guidance as voted by school committee. A reduction is a reevaluation of a need or a way something was being used. And we're saying we can reduce that. We're still delivering the service you want. So this whole conversation is about still getting you the budget, or us the budget that we want and need. New growth. The cost may be covered or mitigated by any of the above. Just because we identify it in the category of new growth doesn't mean that costs a lot, right? Then this is a category, new liabilities, which was not contemplated, but as we were working on the budget, and I'm like, okay, where does this go? It doesn't fit in any of the other boxes. So we created a new one for the moment, new liabilities. Sometimes the state creates new rules that might be an unfunded liability. I'm going to say there's some liabilities that are being shifted to us, and I don't know how else to capture it, but to call it a new liability. And then there's also the evaluation of funding resources, which actually this was precipitated by the idea of new revenues. So new revenues don't fit in the other boxes. So we created another box, evaluation of funding resources. All right. Okay.
Bella, could you just give an example of, sorry, back one slide, yeah, the new liabilities. My understanding is the town has pushed some things over to us without corollary and funding. Could you just speak to one of those as an example?
Do you want to speak to an example? I can, or you can. You go ahead. Yeah.
So an example of that would be FF&E.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the past, there's been an account in FF&E or in the CIP for furniture. And the town is kind of changing its philosophy about what they want to fund through the CIP and furniture, fixture, and equipment. There's a feeling that that does not belong in a CIP mini grant or otherwise. So this year, we're going to need to fund those expenses that were previously funded through the CIP out of our operating budget. So that's an example.
So that is an example of, and I went, so we, schools, fire, town, police, DPW, we are all drawing from the same pie. So, but for clarity around the budget, like comparing from this year to last year to next year, if what was in one budget is moving to our budget, I think it just needs to be clarified. But it's all coming out of the same pie, as long as everyone recognizes, okay, we would have funded it there, hopefully they'll fund it where it ends up. But that's what we're calling something that wasn't in our budget before, that's new.
Carolyn.
Thank you. And is new growth enrollment growth? Is that what that means?
New growth, when we get to that slide, we'll probably explain it better. Yeah, thank you. So again, efficiencies are not a reduction in service, but these are things that would fit in that box. And so this was a lot of work that we did together with the principals and our other directors. But staffing adjustments based on projected enrollment and student profile that impact the number of teaching sections. So student profile, when I say that, it's just, students may have needs that we have to assess. It could be EL students, it could be students with IEPs, it could be a number of things that would allow us to consider teaching sections or spots in learning centers, et cetera. Staffing adjustments based on projected enrollment and student profile that impact caseloads. So that's not just teaching sections. We are also looking at caseload ratios. We feel we've pretty much finished the analysis on teaching sections, but looking at caseload ratios is pending. Right? Now remember, when I said that things are in process, just because it's pending doesn't mean that we're at 0% completion. It means we're probably 80 to 90% on our way of finishing that analysis. Susan, along with her team, reevaluation of transportation routes, and I understand that is a lot of work has been done, just not 100% complete, pending. Review of budgets to eliminate redundancy. So we took a fresh look at everyone's lines and double checked, anyway, for that, and that these are efficiencies, and so ensuring same service, but doing that. Reorganization of OAF. We had to do that anyway, because in the last budget cycle, positions were eliminated. So we had to do it anyway and find a place for functions or just things that need to be done. And so Susan and her OAF team have done a really, really thoughtful, intensive look at this. And so everything that is staff sensitive, I've shared with all our budget preparers, and I want to reinforce with all of you that we're not going to provide much detail about that prior to the break. But anyway, so just intensive look at OAF.
Bob.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. At the end of the last budget cycle, I wasn't here, the town supplied, closed a gap that we had. And yes,
No,
well,
no, no.
Last year, we closed our own gap using balances from some of our revolving funds.
Yes.
Year before
There,
that, the town.
it was in discussion. It was in discussion. And so I'm glad you asked the question because I think people, because it was in discussion, still think that happened. But in the end, the money came from the district's revolving accounts. So the 1.9 that I just described, that came from the circuit breaker revolving account, the funds intended for FY27, but it came from funds that were available.
Is Bob not referring though to the Lincoln School? Is that what you were referring to, Bob? The playground money that's being held in an account?
no, I don't know the specifics of it. I remember that there was a gap, and then the gap disappeared through, and my question is there an impact on the FY27 budget from that decision?
There is an impact due to our own taking from the revolving account, but not from funds from the town, not that.
Okay.
Because, so this is,
So we borrowed money from our own
yes,
revolving.
yes, so it has an impact on us. Okay. Any questions on this slide? Then I'll go forward. And then in the category of restoration reorganization, so there were some positions that were eliminated, and we feel very strongly we need to restore the Director of Data and Information Systems. If the members themselves reflect how many times you've asked us for data, it has been hard for us to do that, but also district leaders, I mean, across the school system have been looking for data to inform their practice. And so this would be the senior level position of that. We have restored professional development and training. That has been really hard, not being able to fully fund that. This is training for, there's always, like right now, there's AI and there isn't funding to really do that. We've been sort of capturing pieces here and there, but there's always material to constantly maintain. Safety training has to be done over and over. There's always new literature. There's just always things that just to sustain our practices at a high level that need to be done. So those lines were restored. There were computer leases that were postponed, that were on a timeline to be done, that were postponed, that may need to be restored. That's pending. Tuition expenses really refer to our out-of-district tuition lines and looking at that, and we do feel that's complete. All right, so we've finished reconciling that and have projected an amount for the next year based on that work. Even though the communications director was eliminated, and we have felt the loss of that, I felt the loss of it, and I didn't have it, but I feel the loss of it. But in terms of looking at our budget and recognizing we're in a possible override year, we just didn't there were other things we gave a priority. And so no communication director restored, but we added some money for consultancy if we might need that, to just to be able to carry us forward. And maybe with the Director of Data Information Systems, maybe it will help us understand if we do need to restore or we're able to do some of the work. So we talked about the website, going to the new platform. We couldn't do that actually without hiring someone part-time to do it. And so as Susan mentioned, the person that's been working with us is going to sunset in 6 weeks now that it's been done. But maybe this person will have a capacity to do some of that work. So it might come back at another time. We just thought we will try to get through another fiscal year. So we're not restoring the position, though it's a very important function. Equity leadership team. So I put that there, the Massachusetts Diversity Education Act. requires all school districts to have a diversity officer and/or equity leadership team. And so Karen, Robin, Susan, and myself have agreed that we will serve the role as the equity leadership team. So I guess that's a reorganization or taking from each of us, but it won't cost you anything extra. But it's something that actually the state requires you to have. And so we decided we'll take that on. And I thank the other members of the team for agreeing to do that. And then here you see reorganization again, because it just fit in this box. So reorganization of OAF. Next slide. Oh, sorry.
Donna? So is that a reorganization of OAF showing up there? Is that an example of what you were saying earlier, that
It's
something
into the
might?
box.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Carolyn?
And are the leased computers, is that staff, students, both? Both, thank you.
I was wondering, do you feel that an equity audit is needed in order to proceed with equity leadership? What you need to do?
So honestly, we have had so much to do in the last months. If you think about the events of this week or the events of another week, and a lot of our energies have been focused on building this budget. So there are things like this that are being put on hold until we complete the building of the budget. And then the next part is, explaining it to people and answering questions around it. But right now, so much of our energy has been just really toward creating this, that has everything else is waiting. So we will have an answer to that question, but I don't feel that we haven't been able to talk about it amongst ourselves.
Bob?
Thank you. Bella, during the interview process, I translated some of what you said in terms of building budgets as you, again, I may be wrong on this, but I translated what you were saying into your interest in a zero-based budgeting process. Was I incorrect was I misinterpreting that, or are you doing some of that in terms of building this budget?
We didn't say we're doing a zero-based approach, and you might have misinterpreted what I said, but I do believe that we always look to, I think Susan and I were aligned in this, that you always look for efficiencies and make sure what you budgeted is what you really need. I think in this round of budget development, we were able to look at other budgets more closely for, again, to identify if there were redundancies or efficiencies. So I think it was taking budgets and asking a lot of questions about what the funds were being used for. And so that would lead to some of the reductions in a future box.
Will we be able to participate in that analysis?
Analysis will have been done, but you definitely will be able to, I mean, that analysis we're doing it now, but you will be able to see where you'll have more specificity.
So am I going to be allowed to say, well, what about this? What about those expenses? What about that?
I think you might be able to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I'm looking carefully and.
Right. I think we have, well, if we move forward, you'll see it's where I identified it in reductions.
Okay.
Okay. Reorganization. So reorganization's coming back again and again. It was about, for FY27 OAF, we really did, and a lot of the work again was Susan and her own staff, reviewing and redefining the department to recover lost functions ensure reporting alignment that will improve productivity and accountability. So it really, things are really aligned differently, and it's, I don't know, it looks very positive, the changes. In FY28, so in the next year, we anticipate additional reorganization as we review the middle school schedule and structure, and we'll expand our review of organizational systems to OTL and OSS. The work that was done for AAF was a lot, it's a lot, and so we look forward to, in time, to looking at the other two big groups. Reductions. So there's some reductions in computer leases that are pending. I think we've identified them as just a number of conversations that need to happen before we can declare. Materials and supplies, I know it's a very generic term, but this is where we were looking to budgets and identified recommendations are to reduce. And then there are reductions in staffing across all categories. And it's pretty, a lot of work has been done, I would say, again, somewhere between 80 and 90% complete, and some pieces pending. So it could be administrative, it could be teaching, it could be para, it could be support. That's what I mean by across all categories. New growth. I don't know, you label cost neutral. I think they're mostly, it ends up at maybe cost neutral. So new growth meaning, so the vision of a learner was first defined to be 9 through 12, but we want to expand it to be pre-K 12. So in a way that, so anything new is not already in the budget that we want to do. So science curriculum review wasn't identified in this year's budget. We want to do it for next year. The K-8 math curriculum renewal, that actually is just a licensure that's expired that we have to renew. Math program conversion, as you all know, we have left the calculus project, but what we have done is continued with the programs that we had. And so it's just a conversion. There's a little bit of savings in there because the fees that we would have paid to a calculus project won't be there anymore, but the staffing that we are utilizing to support students in math acceleration remain. So that's what that is. Literacy expansion to the grades 6 to 8, we've talked about it a lot of times. We continue to do work in K-5 and expansion to 6 to 8, but we think that may be grant funded. Expansion to MTS is also continual new growth. Development of that. And CTE classes, we're hoping to increase the number of CTE classes available at the high school. It may be cost neutral. I think it's likely to be cost neutral, and we're working on that. Seal of biliteracy, whether it's cost neutral or not, is pending. So that's in process.
Donna?
Thank you. I have two questions. Could you explain seal of biliteracy? And also, can you remind me whether, whatever the new name of child study team is, I can't remember. Does that fall under MTSS? Okay, thank you.
Seal of biliteracy, it was a DESE initiative. I want to say it was, maybe it was 2015, around there. It's been a while. I don't know if it was ever here, it went away, or it's something that we want to do.
We've never had it.
Never had it. It was from DESE, and actually was to promote equity in achievement through equity in recognition. So seal of biliteracy means if I am studying, it's mastering a language other than your mother tongue. All right. So if French is not my mother tongue, or native tongue, I should say, and I reach a level of proficiency, I may earn a CLA by literacy. Similarly, if I'm learning English and I reach that level of proficiency, I will earn a CLA by literacy. And it's just recognizing that they both are momentous achievements. And so that's what that is. It does, to manage CLA by literacy does need either a release or a stipend from a person because it's a lot of tests. So to prove their proficiency is the formal assessments, and you need someone to manage that.
I'd like to just explain the word seal. So, when you get your graduation diploma, this is an additional thing that you could have to sort of show your competency.
Thank you.
I can't see online if there are hands.
So new liabilities is shifting known liabilities, and now you know what that might be, and then new unfunded liabilities that can come from the changes in, I don't know, changes in state requirements or federal requirements. It's just to capture it there. Evaluation of funding resources, so federal and state grants, I don't know, they're pending. We'll have additional information as we go forward. I think we're 90% done there. I think there's just one more grant that we're looking at.
Yeah, so I do want to call out here that in our planning, we are not anticipating that we're going to receive Title II, III, or IV. So as we've been interrogating accounts, including these, which are federal grants, we're not anticipating where to get those resources. We do expect at this point to get Title I and IDEA, which are the two bigger grants of our federal grants. And that work has been done. What hasn't been done is I haven't completed the state grants.
So just to be really clear, when we are looking at this sheet and we look at expense total, earlier you said that the numbers that we're looking at aren't able to take into account all of what we will receive. So when I look at last year's 142 million and this year's 152 million, both of those have assumptions on grants that we'll receive in both of those numbers, but it's still pending the full understanding of that. Okay, thanks.
And then local grants, we are privileged to benefit from, BEF, our Innovation Fund, but there's also a multitude of other local grants that we benefit from. Some of them actually cover allocation of staffing. So this is something we always have to look at. The other is looking at our revolving accounts, in particular the circuit breaker, and we do believe that work is complete.
Circuit breaker is complete. There's still additional work I need to do on use of facility funds. BEEP I haven't quite reconciled, but I'm getting close on some of those other ones, but not quite there yet.
And then again, this box was precipitated somewhat by the conversation around exploring revenue opportunities, and I think that there were ideas that have come from the Revenue and Study Committee that we have adopted in our work in developing the budget. And this one was definitely one that came from there. And I thank Susan and Kieran for doing a lot of work on the revenue opportunities. It's pending. One of the significant things in here is whether we would bring students from other districts into space available in our current programs and what we would charge for that. So that is pending because we have to establish the tuition. That is 80 to 90% complete in terms of the analysis, the data that have been collected. What is the administrative cost? What's the staffing cost? What's the material cost? All of that. And so that's pending, but a lot of work has been done. So this is the box of evaluation of funding resources. And then future planning, I know we're so multi-year. So FY28, FY29, we're doing our best to anticipate what we can put out in those future fiscal years. Strategic plan development, I thought I had been talking about trying to really get into that for FY27. But as we looked at our reorganization and the potential for future reorganization, we think that maybe that will be a lot of what we'll do in the FY20, in anticipation for FY28. And then also the middle school schedule. As we looked at the middle school schedule and reflected on the work already been done, it was clear there's not like an easy tweak to resolve the challenges of the middle school schedule. It requires a deeper look, and so we're putting forth that that's going to take a lot of time in the fiscal year out to realize. We'll start looking at it this year and through next year, but it may, to actually affect a change, will likely have some impact, some fiscal impact, but it's too early to say what that would be. Again, expand the review of our organizational structures to OSS and OTL. It's really looking at the systems. Yeah.
Donna. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm asking so many questions. When you had middle school schedule up on the slide, were you referring specifically to the variation in minutes in different subjects from school to school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So there was a middle school study that was done. Everyone in town knows about it, and that there is not the same minutes and instruction across core areas, depending on what school you go to. But it's not an easy fix, and so it's going to take more of a look. We don't have a recommendation between now and another month, what that would be. So I don't know if you wanted to say more, but I think you want to go through this. Yeah?
I can give some highlights, but I know folks have just received it. And of course, this is a work in progress, but I can certainly give you a little orientation if that would be helpful. Okay. Most of this information, 23, 24, 25, and 26 is all information you've seen before, not necessarily crunched into this format, because usually you don't get this until I publish the budget. So, but I have shared it with you previously. I thought it would be important to include this now so that you can kind of start looking these numbers over. It also helps for sense making as you're looking out into the forecast. How I use this information, of course, is to see what our actual spending was as opposed to what we budgeted, right? That's an important part of interrogating accounts. So in this case, I thought it would be helpful for you to see some of what I've been looking at as I'm putting together the 27 budget, which then impacts the 28 estimate and the 29. So as Bella said in her summary, the number's down from what the forecast was. The forecast is before the budget build, okay? So it's not based on true expenses associated with our programs for FY27. This information that you have here tonight is part of the budget build, right? So these numbers have been adjusted based on the work that we have done. There are some accounts here that are going to change. I just want to say that this is not the final number. You know, the accounts are going to change. Some of them I feel are pretty close to 100%, if not 100%. But also when I interrogate and I look at the special revenue funds and finish the salary work, these numbers will have to be adjusted based on my learning there. So more work to be done. As Bella said, don't anticipate that the number's going up. I mean, the number, as we tighten up our work, these numbers will improve. And we're hoping that in January, we'll be able to give you that, final tightened up number. And then we'll publish the narrative and the analysis and everything that goes along with that, as we had said that we would in the beginning of February. So you'll get another update in another month. So, I think those are the other highlights I would make is just a reminder that in '25, to Bob's point, we closed in deficit, but we didn't go to the town for funding. The money that we needed in order to close our budget in balance was used out of fund balances in 2 of our revolving funds, BEEP, and I've reported on this, so it's just a reminder, the BEEP revolving fund and the material fees fund. So that was in '25. And I make the note down here because when you're looking at transportation, for example, those were the expenses that were pushed off into the revolving funds. When I look at, and I'm forecasting, I'm going to use that as the example for '27, and when I look at 2026, I can see when I add this number to '25, that the number in '25, the actual spend was higher than what we have in the current year budget. So I'm course correcting in '27. So that's just an example of some of the implications for using revolving fund balances and how it has a ripple effect that comes back online with expenses at a future point in time. Okay, and the other one I called out here was the one Bella did, which is on our circuit breaker expenses. So you can see when you're looking at out-of-district tuition, you can see the numbers are going around 4,000, 4,500, 49. So they're kind of escalating up. And then you can see in the '26 budget, we're at 3 million, and that is because we took $2 million of expenses and charged it off against the revolving fund. That has to come back online in FY '27, as Bella explained. So those are a couple of things I wanted to point out. It has implications in '27 based on decisions that we made in '26 or in '25 to close our budget gap there, and to close the '26 budget with a balanced budget.
And while you were looking at the chart, just so you see the percent increases from FY '24 on, so 5.9, 4.44, 4.34, but I want to make sure to point out that the monies taken from the circuit breaker was about 1.4%. So in reality, the district really needed 5.74% and think about all the things you cut out to get to this point, and so what you needed to fund. And so we've been looking hard to find other efficiencies or reductions, but we've made 2 restorations, again, to the PD training line, and the other one is the senior director data analyst position. We didn't really willy-nilly restore a lot of the other things. Those are the 2 areas of focus of restoration.
Carolyn.
Thanks, and thanks, Susan. I'm just going to ask a couple questions to make sure I'm sort of tracking on some fundamental stuff. And 1 or 2 of these may just be things you already just said, Susan, but I need to clarify. So in the first asterisk, did I hear you say that the 866, 894 that was needed came, when you're saying revolving fund balances, that was the BEEP and materials fee?
Yes.
I thought the BEEP and materials fee, 1.2 million, was it? It was like 1.2, okay, if I don't remember the numbers. I thought that was when we had the salary deficit, that's what those were used for.
We made some adjustments based on grants and revolving funds.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm calling it out here on transportation because the lion's share of the expense was transportation.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted, because if absent that information, you would look at '25 and say, wow, your expenses are going down, but actually they were blowing up at the time.
Right.
So I'm just reminding you of that.
But yes, and it's also, I mean, I think and this is not a criticism, but just at all, but the fact that we used those revolving fund balances, the BEEP and the materials fee, I think that's just important for people to kind of know and then presumably now there's not much kinds of funds wouldn't be readily available again anytime soon?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I also, and I'm sure we went over this last year, but the second asterisk and the circuit breaker, and Bella, sorry, you might have just said this. I understand what we did to push forward the circuit breaker. And so now do we need to sort of correct that at some point, or is that going to be what we'll just continue to do that?
The new projected budget reflects that we've corrected for it.
Okay.
Yes,
So then we'll go back to the old
so if
use.
you think about it,
Okay.
that new budget number reflects that we corrected for it. As Susan has said, and I will say too, that as the number gets refined, we're hoping that it will improve, get lower. And I remind everyone, you're looking at a number with no town allocation.
Mm-hmm.
So we have corrected for it. We've had some shifted liabilities. We are anticipating the loss of Title II, 3, and 4. So I hope, this is to appreciate all the work that's been done, that we're at the number that we're at, and we'll continue to work on it.
Thank you.
Can I try to clarify that? I'm not sure I understood what you meant by corrected for it. Do you mean that some expenses for fiscal 27 that we would have liked to charge to circuit breaker will in fact be part of our I don't know what to call it, the operating budget or the allocation, or what we're hoping the allocation will be, because we already drew that money out of circuit breaker for last year?
Right, so there's two components to that. One, you lost the revenue, right, that would have otherwise been allocated this year. That won't come back online till 28, which is why you kind of see this little bit of a wave in that account line. So the first step of restoring is we still got to pay those expenses. They have to come back online because there's not revenue now to offset them.
And by online, you mean sort of what's on this?
Online to the operating budget,
Yeah, the
right, back
operating,
onto
okay.
the operating budget is what I mean, to be clear.
Okay.
So that's why you see, if you look at that line, it goes down to the 2,968,000. Now it's up to 5,204,000, right? There's two components to that. We have less revenue that we can use to offset, and those expenses that we moved over one time onto circuit breaker now have to come back onto the operating budget because they're real. Yeah.
Mariah?
Thank you. And thank you, Bella and Susan, for this presentation, which I think provides a lot of important detailed information, even though, as you say, it's not a budget. It's a really helpful next peeling of the onion to start to understand how the forecast is breaking down across categories and across multiple years. And it shows a lot of the significant work that you've been able to do, is you've highlighted getting from the higher percentages in the out year down to particularly this next year. And I just want to comment, one of the things which maybe, I think that Bella and Susan have said we haven't gotten the forecast from the town, but we have gotten the forecast from the town, at least at the initial long-range forecast, and it shows a reduction in the allocation to PSB. So not only, as you see here, it says additional town revenue allocation, it says 0, but in fact, the first number showed the reduction going down by, I believe it was just under, or just over $400,000. Am I correct, Susan? Am I misremembering anything? And Bella, does that align with your understanding?
So that is where it is right now. So
Well,
I think
well, let me
we
just keep
are
going. Right,
hoping,
that's
yeah,
your
we're
understanding
hoping
here. Yeah.
that it's gonna, yes.
But in
So,
a typical year, you would see that the overall revenues, and typically you would see the allocations going to the departments. You know, everyone's heard of Prop 2.5, and that's the sort of base growth, and then there's typically new growth. And so you expect in a typical year, you're going to get 3, maybe 3.5% growth on your budget. And so to have 0 is obviously really unusual, really challenging for everyone. But I just want to sort of like, as we think about 3.5 being sort of typical growth numbers that we might see from a town revenue allocation, what's really exciting is we have, yes, we have this correction year next year that we've been talking about, but then you see that 28 comes in very close to that, and 29 is a little higher. But I guess my point is that when we think about these numbers, it also is in context of a sort of a typical growth that we would see in the budget. And so I'm really impressed that these numbers, to see a number that's estimated at coming in at just over 3.5% in one of the years, it really does reflect really starting to approach, I know that the goal that we all have of having a sustainable budget. So how we can get there, the more years we can come in close to that sort of more standard revenue increase, the better we'll be in the long term. So I just want to highlight that and thank you, Susan, for all the work you've done to continue to get us going in that direction. It's really meaningful in the long run, and I appreciate that.
I can't take credit for all of that. It's been a team effort, and certainly I appreciate my fellow deputies here for digging in with me, as well as Bella and Z and the rest of the finance team. They've done yeoman's work. It doesn't happen alone. Principals, there's been a lot of collaboration around this, so.
Thank you to the whole team.
I feel like that's a good note to end on, because we do all appreciate the work that you've put in. Thank you.
It's true. I mean, Susan's the one that gets the numbers to work. And so, yes, thank you.
I'm going to run through subcommittee and liaison reports, starting with curriculum.
We are scheduled to meet on January 21st. However, that happens to be a night of negotiations. So we are looking to find a different date and getting all the people who are going to be a part of that discussion. I mean, we probably will talk about MTSS, where that is, and we will also hear from the high school team on the suggestions for course additions and any courses that they're going to take off the course catalog. So stay tuned for the date on that. Thank you.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice will be canceled for early January. Finance and capital projects?
We did not meet last week, and in part because of all the budget work that's getting done, needs to take the priority. And I think our next meeting it's mid-January. I don't remember the date right now, but we will hopefully be coming back to talk about some of the topics that have come up tonight. For example, the fee determinations for the district, including the out-of-district fees.
Government relations?
We actually met December 15th. We met, the subcommittee met. We are getting ready for our legislative, what do we call that, forum? Yeah, meeting with legislators, but that will happen in February. So Carolyn has offered to do a first draft with looking at the areas, the big buckets that we're concerned with, and the questions that we might want answered. So we will be meeting again. Did we set a date? January? Not yet. Okay, sometime early January, so that we can present it to the whole body, the whole school committee, before our February date.
Negotiations?
Yeah, we had our second meeting with the BEU on December 16th. We're hearing initial proposals, and we'll continue to do that in January. We currently have 3 meetings scheduled in January with the union, the 13th, the 21st, and the 28th.
Policy?
Yeah, that's me again. So our December meeting got canceled at the last minute because of poor management by me. I apologize for that. So that means that our January meeting, I expect we'll be dealing with instructional materials as well as our original plan of talking about fiscal management, but that's still tentative.
And do we have any liaison reports? How about expenditures and revenues?
So the full committee met this afternoon to talk about some of the process around what the report will look like. And it appears that I think I'm going to capture this accurately. The final writing and the final voting will not include select board members or school committee members and possibly advisory committee members. There was talk about essentially all of the townwide positions not having a hand in that. And I'm not quite sure if it included advisory or not. And schools subcommittee is meeting tomorrow and at 9 a.m. To meet with Bella and Susan and talk, have some opportunity to talk about the presentation that we just received.
Excellent. New business? Carolyn?
This is, I don't know if it's new business or a little around the town report out that's not a subcommittee. Just wanted to say, yesterday I attended a nice event, which was a promotion of 2 of our wonderful police officers in our wonderful police department. The the superintendent of police, which is the number 2 position, is retiring. A long-term veteran, Paul Campbell, was promoted to superintendent, and a longtime Brookline resident, mother of 4 PSB children, former town meeting member, Casey Hatchett, was promoted to deputy superintendent, number 3 position in the department. She's the first woman to ever hold that position. So that was a nice event to attend and congratulate those officers and the women.
I think I understand that we do not have the proposed executive session. Is that what I'm to understand?
I don't think we need one.
So we will, at this point, adjourn. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm so sorry.
Donna?
Actually, 2 things for new business. One is, and this is also like a community information. Mariah and I attended a mock trial event at the Brookline District Court. We served on the jury together. It was really interesting this past Tuesday. Students from Runkle, and I think there was 1 student from Hayes who participated in the case. The students did an absolutely incredible job, and the mock trial case was about a student suing their school district, which I thought was really interesting. And then in terms of new business, I wanted to ask, whenever it's appropriate, if we could consider sharing more information on the work that's happening around Portrait of a Learner.
Noted. Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, we will conclude this school committee meeting. Thank you.